guys, welcome to the Unit 5 review. Oh, that was a loud noise. Okay, so this one says, write the ratio in simplest form. You can write ratios lots of different ways. One way that I like to write ratios as fractions. And I do that because then I can use my calculator to help me simplify it. So if I just put this into a fraction, then I could either do this in my brain where I simplify, or I could use the calculator, and I'm going to show you both. Okay, so if you're not super confident in your math skills, then you can go to your calculator and you can type it in exactly how it looks. What is this? 60 over 20. And then that tells me that the answer is 3. All right, so let's go back and see how to write that. So the calculator told me that this equals 3, but I still want it to be a ratio, so it still has to be a fraction. Anytime you have a number that's not in fraction form, you can always make it a fraction by putting a 1 on the bottom. So if I reduce this 60 over 20, it reduces to 3 over 1. So I can just go back here and line it up like the 60 reduced to a 3, so I'm going to put 3 first. And then the 20 reduced to a 1, so I'm going to put 1 second. So I could rewrite this ratio as 3 to 1. Solve the following proportion. Okay, so on this one, we have an equal sign in the middle. That means that we want to cross multiply. If you didn't have an equal sign in the middle, you would just multiply straight across. But in this case, we are going to cross multiply. So we're going to do k times 8 equals 12 times 4. And y'all know when I solve equations, I like to draw my line down the equal sign and box off my letter. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and simplify 12 times 4. And feel free to do that in a calculator. All right, it's 48. And then I'm just bringing this side straight down, k times 8. Now remember, when you solve an equation, you're trying to get that letter by itself. So I need to get rid of times 8. So I ask myself, okay, what's the opposite of multiplying by 8? And the opposite is dividing. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Those will cancel. 8 divided by 8 cancels, leaving me with just k. And then 48 divided by 8 is 6. Now remember, you can put that in your calculator. So there's our answer. We solved the proportion and k equals 6. Change colors here. Okay, so this one says, sorry, I'm having some pen issues. There we go. A house blueprint shows the bedroom is 4 inches wide and the actual length of the bedroom is 20 feet wide. All right, so we got two bedrooms going on here. We got a little bedroom and then we got a big bedroom. Let's just pretend like that's terrible. Okay. But this little one is 4 inches wide and this giant one is going to be 20 feet wide. And then it says that if the bedroom has a length of 10 feet, what is the length on the blueprint? So we're trying to figure out the length there. All right, you can do this two ways. You can kind of look at it and figure out the scale factor, but the way that I always set it up is with proportions. So I'm just going to say, okay, I know, well, actually, let me do it this way. You can set up your first fraction however you want. So you could do 4 over x, you could do x over 4, you could do 4 over 20, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to set up the first fraction using the small one. So I'm just going to say, since x looks like it's on top for me, I'm going to say x on top, 4 on bottom. Okay, now when I set up my second fraction, I just have to make sure the sides match up. So I have to ask myself, which side goes with x on the big room? And it would be this one. Those sides are proportional. So I have to use 10 on top of my fraction. And then I look over here at the 4, that was the width. So I'm going to use the width on the bottom. And then from here, we got some cross multiplying. We're going to have 20 times x equals 4 times 10. And it's an equation, so we're going to draw our line and box off our letter. 4 times 10 is 40. I'm going to bring all this straight down, 20 times x. And I'm trying to get the x by itself. Right now I'm multiplying by 20. The opposite would be to divide by 20. So I'm going to divide each side by 20. And x will equal 2. So that's our answer. You could have also looked, well, never mind. I'm just going to keep going. For this next one, which of the following is a unit rate? All right, so if we're dealing with unit rates, we usually want to know like what, if you break it all the way down to 1. Let me show you what I mean by that. So this first answer says 3 gallons to go 40 miles. Well, that breaks it down to 3 gallons. We want it broken down into 1 gallon. This one says 4.19 earned runs per 9 innings pitched. Now, neither of those are 1. Like if it was per 1 inning pitched, then that might be a unit rate. That would be a unit rate. But none of those break it down into 1 unit. 2 teachers for every 32 students. Again, neither of those are broken down into 1, right? There's 2 teachers. So if it had said 1 teacher for every 16 students, that would be a unit rate. But here it's not broken all the way down to 1 unit. And then the last one, you earn $11.52 per hour. Now, even though it doesn't say the number 1, it's per 1 hour. So that is a unit rate because it broke it all the way down to 1. Wendy was riding her bike along a trail and traveled 60 miles in 6 hours. What was Wendy's unit rate for her bike ride? And it tells us here we want to ride it in miles per hour. Now remember, a unit rate means you want to break it down to 1. So we want to know how many miles she rides per 1 hour. All right, so if we looked over here, she went 60 miles in 6 hours. So if we go and reduce that, you can either do it in your brain or your calculator. I'll show you the calculator since that's what most of you will use. So we had 60 over 6, and that equals 10. So let's go back to our paper. Now remember, we said on a previous problem that if the calculator gives you a whole number, you can always turn it back into a fraction by putting a 1 on the bottom. So by reducing this fraction 60 over 6, we get 10 over 1. And what that tells us is that she goes 10 miles per 1 hour, which would be the unit rate, because unit means you want to break it down into 1. A pair of polygons is similar. Find the value of x. Okay, because they're similar, we know their sides are proportional, so we just have to match up the sides. I'm going to go ahead and set up my first fraction. And remember, your first fraction you can set up however you want. I usually like to put x in my first fraction, so I'm going to do x over 6.4. That came from this big triangle. Now the important part is that I match those up. So since x was the hypotenuse across from the 90-degree angle, when I do the top of my next fraction, I need to make sure that I use the hypotenuse, the one across from the 90-degree angle. So I'm going to put 8.2 on top. And then 6.4 was the base, and so I'm going to use 4.7. That's the side it's proportional to. Those are both bases. And then now, hopefully you know what to do. We are going to cross multiply and solve. So I'm going to do x times 4.7, and if the decimal kind of starts making it look messy with lots of dots, you can always use parentheses for multiply. It's up to you. And then you can multiply these as well. So 6.4 times 8.2. And then since we're solving an equation, we're going to draw our line, box off our x, and we're going to do this. So 6.4 times 8.2, I would definitely do that in the calculator, which I just did even though you can't see it. And that's 52.48. And I'm just bringing this side straight down. And remember, I'm trying to get x by itself, which means that I have to get rid of 4.7. Since I'm multiplying by 4.7, the opposite would be to divide each side by 4.7. And then again, I'm going to do that in the calculator. I'm not going to try to do that in my brain. So I got 11.16595745. That's probably not what your answer is going to look like, though. It's probably going to round to the nearest. In this case, all the numbers are the nearest tenth. They only have 1 decimal place. So I'm going to round my answer to 1 decimal place. And just as a reminder, when you round, I like to underline the spot that you're looking for and circle the number right behind it. The number behind it tells me whether my spot stays the same or increases by 1. If this number that's circled is 5 or greater, it increases. So this 1 becomes a 2. So that would be my answer. 24-foot tree casts a shadow that is 20 feet long. At the same time, Nikki cast a 5-foot shadow. How tall is Nikki? All right, so we are trying to find the height of this girl. So you can label it H or X or whatever you want to label it as. I'm gonna go ahead and make it X. And she has, I don't know if you can see it, but she has this teeny tiny triangle right here. And this triangle, this little one, is actually proportional to this bigger one. So we're going to use similar triangles to figure this out. When we have similar triangles, we can set up fractions and cross multiply. So in my purple triangle, I have x over 5. Remember, it does not matter how you set up that first fraction. All that matters is that you get the second fraction to match it. So 5 was this vertical distance. So when I look at my yellow triangle, I need to use the vertical distance. So 24, and I'm going to change that color in just a second because that's hard to see. I don't know. Yeah. And then down here, 5 is the base, so we want to use the base of the yellow triangle, which is 20. So let me go ahead and cross multiply. X times 20 equals 5 times 24. Draw your line, box off your X. 5 times 24, you would want to use your calculator on. That's 120. And then X times 20, we're just going to bring that straight down. And remember, it doesn't matter if you use the dot or the parentheses or the X for multiply. And we're trying to get the X by itself, so we need to do the opposite of multiplying by 20, which is dividing each side by 20. And 120 divided by 2 is 60. Y'all, I've lost my mind. I just said that equals 60. That is crazy talk. That equals 6. Sorry about that. So she is 6 feet tall. Determine if the two rectangles are similar. So if they're going to be similar, that means their sides have to be proportional. So we're just going to set up one fraction. I'm going to use this one first. So I'm just going to do 10 over 8. The first fraction, it does not matter how you set it up. All that matters is that in the second fraction, you match up your sides. So since I did 10 on top, that's the vertical distance, I need to make sure I do 20 on top of my next fraction. And 8 was the base, so I need to make sure I use the base of the second fraction. All right, and then we cross multiply here. I'm going to do 10 times 16 equals 8 times 20. I'm still going to draw my line down my equal sign, but there's no X, so I don't need to box off an X. I'm just multiplying. 10 times 16 is 160. 8 times 20 is 160 as well. Since both sides are equal, I know that yes, these are similar because they are proportional. If they didn't end up equal, then no, they would not be similar. The right triangle below has an area of 60 meters squared. The dimensions of the triangle are increased by a scale factor of 3. What is the area of the new triangle? All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of the scale factor of 3. That means I'm making it 3 times bigger. So on each of these sides, I need to multiply by 3. I need to make each of these sides 3 times bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the dimensions of my new triangle after I multiply each of those by 3. 17 times 3 is 51. 8 times 3 is 24. Okay, so now I have my new triangle and it is 3 times bigger. We've used a scale factor of 3. And then I need to find the area. An area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. So I'm going to plug it in. 1/2 times my base is 24 and my height is 45. And then you just type that in your calculator. And my new area is 540 meters squared. All right, and then on this one, we have dilated the line by a scale factor of 2. So that means we want to make it 2 times bigger. What are the coordinates for the new ones? Okay, so I'm just going to go through and multiply everything by 2. So 2 times 2 would be 4. 4 times 2 would be 8. That would be my new A prime. And then for my new B prime, 6 times 2 is 12, and 2 times 2 is 4. Those are the new coordinates.